Friends, Victor Hugo, in one of my previous video, I had introduced you the novel La is La Miserable. So Victor Hugo is a well-known writer, French writer, and his name is well known in the world literature also. He born in 1802 and he died in 1885. So he was a well-known French writer. Today, let us talk about one of his novel, very famous novel, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. So this is an historical novel set in a medieval Paris, a city of vividly intermingled beauty and grotesque. So the story of this novel by Victor Hugo, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, start during in this novel a festival of 1482, a festival of pops of fools in Paris. Quasimodo, the hero, the protagonist of this novel, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, is elected the Pope of Fools for being the ugliest person in Paris. He is hoisted on a throne and paraded around Paris by the jeering mob. Pierre Gregoire, a struggling poet and a philosopher, tries unsuccessfully. Another character, Pierre Gregoire, the philosopher and the poet, tries unsuccessfully to get the crowd to watch his play instead of parade. Archdeacon Claude Frollo appears and stops the parade and orders Quasimodo back to Notre Dame with him. Looking for something to eat, Gregoire admires the graceful beauty of La Esmeralda, a gypsy street dancer, and decides to follow her home. After rounding a corner, she is suddenly attacked by Quasimodo and Frollo. Gregoire rushes to help her but is knocked out by Quasimodo as Frollo runs away. The king's archer, led by Faubourg de Chateaupoix, arrives just in time and captures the hunchback. Later that night, a group of beggars and thieves are about to hang Gregoire when La Esmeralda comes forward and offers to save his life by marrying him for 4 years only. So the next day, Quasimodo is put on trial and sentenced to 2 hours of torture in the Place de Graves. He suffers both the pain of stretched and pulled apart as being publicly humiliated by a crowd of people who hate him for his ugliness. He begs for water, but no one answers his plea until La Esmeralda comes forth and brings him something to drink. Nearby, a recluse called Sister Godili screams at La Esmeralda for being a gypsy child thief and blames her for her daughter's kidnapping 15 years earlier. A few months later, La Esmeralda is dancing in front of Notre Dame and Faubourg calls her over to him. She has fallen in love with him and blushes when he asks her to meet him late night. Frollo watches them from the top of Notre Dame and becomes insanely jealous of Phoebus. His obsessive lust for Esmeralda has made him renounce God and study alchemy and black magic. In his secret cell at Notre Dame, he plans to trap La Esmeralda like a spider catching a fly with its web. Later that night, he follows Phobos by his tryst with Lies Marala and stab Phoebus repeatedly. He escape and Lies Marala is captured by the king's guard. So what happened after being tortured at a trial? Lies Marala is falsely confessed to killing Phoebus. Being a witch, she is sentenced to hang in the place de grave. Frollo visits her in jail and declares his love. He begs her to love him and show him some pity, but she calls him a goblin monk and a murderer, refusing to have anything to do with him. Before her execution, Lies Marala is publicly humiliated in front of Notre Dame. Looking across the square, she suddenly sees Phoebus and calls out his name. He actually survived. Phoebus was not killed by Lies Marala. He survived the murder attempt but doesn't want anyone to know that he was injured. He turns away from Lies Marala and enters the house of his bride to be. Just then Quasimodo swings down on a rope from the tower of this cathedral of Notre Dame, from Notre Dame, and carries her back to the cathedral, crying out, "Sanctuary!" He had fallen in love when she was brought him water and been planning for escape all being. Lies Marala is safe from execution just as long as she stays inside the cathedral. At first she finds it hard even to look at Quasimodo, but then from an uneasy friendship, even though he's deaf, he enjoys being around her when she sings. Meanwhile, a group of vagabonds resolve to save Lies Marala after hearing that Parliament has ordered that she be removed from Notre Dame. But when Quasimodo sees them attack the cathedral, he thinks they have come to kill Lies Marala, and he fends them off as best as he can, killing a large number of them. Frollo has used the attack as a diversion to sneak Lies Marala out of cathedral. He offers her two choices. She can either say she loves him or be hanged. She demands to be executed, and he leaves her with Sister Cordelia. To their astonishment, they discover that they are mother and daughter. Cordelia tries to protect Lies Marala, but it is too late. Back at Notre Dame, Quasimodo goes to top of the north tower to find her. Gazing off into the distance, he sees the figure of Lies Marala in a white dress hanging from the scaffold. He bellows out in despair and grabs Frollo by the neck, holding up in the air, and Quasimodo signs with grief and throws this rascal Claudio Frollo from above the roof of the Notre Dame. Quasimodo sigh with grief and then throws Frollo down to his death. Looking at La Esmeralda hanging off in the distance and Frollo wrangled corpse down below, Quasimodo cries out, "There is everything I have ever loved." Quasimodo is ever seen again. Years later, when a grave digger stumbles across La Esmeralda remains, he finds the skeleton of a hunchback curled around her. So this is the story, the tragic story of La Esmeralda and the Quasimodo, the bell ringer, the hunchback of Notre Dame, how she meet her fate, that innocent gypsy girl, and how the rascal Claudio Frollo conspired to hang her. And this is the story of Hunchback of Notre Dame, written by Victor Hugo. There are many characters involved in this novel, as all of you know, Claudio Frollo, Perry Gregoire, uh, uh, Quasimodo, the bell ringer. Quasimodo is actually the hero of this novel. He's the protagonist and the hunchback of Notre Dame. He's in fact an abandoned child left at Notre Dame and adopted by Archdeacon Claude of Rollo. Hideously deformed, he has a giant humpback, a protrusion coming out his chest, and giant warts that cover out one of his eyes. He is also deaf. His heart is pure, and this purity is linked to the cathedral itself. Indeed, this love for Notre Dame bells and for the beautiful sound of the ringing represent his only form of communication. The whole of Paris ironically enjoys Quasimodo's singing. Archdeacon Claude Frollo, a priest at Notre Dame. Frollo is also the novel antagonist. However, is not a typical evil character bent on causing pain and suffering. Instead, he is very bright and compassionate. He dearly loves his brother Jehan and does everything in his power to make Jehan happy after their parents die. He extends the same compassion to Quasimodo, who has tried to mold into a scholar just like his brother by teaching him how to read and write. So, Quasimodo this cloud of Rollo became, due to the obsessive character, he loves to seduce La Esmeralda, the beautiful gypsy girl. La Esmeralda, another character, a lost daughter of Sister Godili. La Esmeralda is beautiful gypsy street dancer along with her goat, Jali. She charms everyone she meets with her stunning looks and magic tricks. She keeps an amulet with trinket around her neck to help her find her parents. Prairie Gregoire, a struggling playwright and philosopher, La Esmeralda saves him from being hanged by a group of vagabonds and agrees to marry him for 4 years. So, Fobo di Chetepua, a captain of King's Archer, he saved La Esmeralda from Quasimodo. He does not love her but tries to seduce her and a number of other women as well. Frollo stabs him, everyone leaves him for dead. He recovers but fails to speak when La Esmeralda is sentenced to death. Sister Godili, La Esmeralda, long lost mother, she is a miserable recluse living